Welcome to the beautiful historic village of Eyam in the Peak District National Park in Derbyshire, England. Eyam has links with industry, being a worldwide centre for the production of fluorspar, a material of considerable value in smelting and open heath furnaces. The village of Eyam became famous after the Black Death of 1665 and 1666. Village life in Britain has changed considerably in the past 50 years, and many villages have emptied as people moved away to the towns. Eyam, however, still has a vibrant community and thriving businesses. The Eyam Museum from April is open 6 days a week, Tuesday to Sunday, from 10 o'clock in the morning, and the last entry is 3:15 p.m. They open on Mondays, on bank holidays only. The Plague Memorial Service also takes place on the last Sunday of August, when a procession led by the local rector walks from the church to Cooklet Delph. This was the outdoor site of services during the plague, and here the service of commemoration is held. The high point of each year is probably Wakes Week at the end of August. Various community events take place, and the historic well dressings, newly created each year by local people, are put on display. The week culminates in the village carnival, which is great fun and raises substantial sums for local charities. There are many places of interest to visit in the village, including St. Lawrence's Church, the Boundary Stone, the Riley Graves, where the Hancock family lived and died, their only survivor being Mrs. Hancock, who buried her husband and her 6 children. Mom Pesson's Well, where during the plague food and medicine were left with money at the well. The Derby Graves, and Eyam Hall. John Clifford wrote a brief account of the plague and how Eyam survived. Late in the summer of 1665, infected materials from London were delivered to the house of the village tailor, Alexander Hadfield. They were opened by his assistant, George Vickers, who shortly afterwards became ill and died. His death was quickly followed by that of his 2 stepsons, Edward and Jonathan Cooper, and his immediate neighbours, and eventually the tailor himself. The infection spread rapidly throughout the autumn, slowing down in the winter only to return with greater vigour in the spring and summer, reaching a peak in August when 78 people died in the month. In the 14 months the danger lasted, it claimed 260 lives out of a population of around 800. Under the leadership of the rector, Reverend William Mompesson, and his predecessor, the Reverend Thomas Stanley, the villagers agreed to accept strict quarantine to prevent the spread of the disease beyond the village boundary. They were supported by the Earl of Devonshire, and by other charitable but less wealthy neighbours who provided the necessities of life during their period of isolation. To control the infection within the village, they agreed firstly to bury their own dead, close to their homes, rather than in consecrated ground, in the belief that unburied corpses were a major hazard in the spread of the pestilence, so that speed was essential, and secondly to worship in the open air, where it would be possible to maintain corporate worship without being in close proximity with their neighbours and thus expose themselves to danger. Apart from the wife of the rector, whose grave is near the church door, there are now no graves of any victims to be seen in the churchyard, though some of the early victims would have been buried there before their decisions were made. Interestingly, some of the villagers who were in contact with those who caught the plague did not catch it. This was because they had a chromosome which gave them protection. This same chromosome has been shown to still exist in those who are direct descendants of those who survived the plague, and who are still living in the village at the present time. The actions of the villagers in staying in the village is almost unique and makes the village the place of significance that it is. The nursery rhyme, Ring a Roses, is associated with this particular event. The ring referred to in the rhyme represents the mark on the cheek that those who caught the plague exhibited. A tissue, we all fall down, refers to the death of those who caught the plague. Over the last 20 years, an archive of oral histories has been created which give a great insight into the life in the village since the turn of the 19th and 20th centuries. These are now available on the Eyam Museum website. At St Lawrence's Church, it is noted that Eyam's earliest record appears in the Domesday Book as Eyam, A-I-U-M, becoming later in the 13th century Eyam, E-Y-U-M, and is derived from ism, meaning at the islands. Not literally an offshore island as we would know it today, but an area of good farmland surrounded by moorland or badly drained marshland. It was into this world that the first impact of the spread of Christianity through Britain was felt in Eyam, when during the 8th century the Celtic cross was erected as a focal point for the church's message. Other evidence of the earliest church can be found in the Saxon font, a Norman window at the west end of the north aisle, and Norman pillars that are thought to rest on Saxon foundations. By about 1350, the Norman structure had been replaced by a church in the decorated style with a chancel and north and south aisles, all much smaller than they are today. During the 17th century, the tower was rebuilt with 4 of its 6 bells, and we would have found the nave decorated with murals depicting the 12 tribes of Israel. The Saxons named the village for the plentiful supply of water, and in 1588 Colonel Bagshaw piped water from the source of the springs to a series of public troughs, with a number also serving private houses, one of the first public water supplying systems. A number of buildings reflect Eyam's industrial past, including the shoe factory in a yard opposite the church, and the 18th century Audrey cottages at Little Edge, where the continuous range of mullioned windows below the eaves give maximum light for cotton spinning. The character of the village is marked by the consistent high quality of its architecture and its uniform thread of style and character, interrupted by occasional buildings of contrasting style and period. The bends in the road restrict views to short segments of the village, creating a constant sense of surprise. Several interesting buildings are set back from the street, resulting in some unexpected sideways views. In 1870, a meeting was convened under the chairmanship of John Wright Esquire, where the rector, Reverend J. Green, explained the new Elementary Education Act, which was due to come into force in 1871. The aims were that all children should be educated between the ages of 5 and 13 years. The school was opened on November the 15th, 1871.